I said that's good. Good morning. I was hoping everyone would say back to me, good morning. Good morning. Right on. Okay. We're here, as you know, to as a celebration of life, of the life of Kay Watkins, who was born in 1932 and passed away recently in June. And we're here at one of his favorite places that he helps support, and his spirit is certainly here with us. And I hope we'll all feel that today. Jan asked me to MC this, and honestly, it's one of the most important things that I think I've ever done, and I'm very grateful for the chance to do that. And I want to start by thanking Kay's family. Susan and Melissa and Laura, would you raise your hands so I know where you are? Okay. Yeah. And Jan, of course, for taking such good care of Kay and for sharing him with all of us for all these years. You know, that family, they just all made each other better. And that has to be one of the greatest families that I practically adopted them as the time went on. So, as the MC today, I want to just start by telling you what we're going to do. It's a little loose and free, so if we forget to say something today or we don't do something that needs to be done, it's your job to make sure that everything here, we say everything that needs to be said and we do everything that we need to do so that we get everybody acknowledged and Kay, we have a feeling, well, Kay's never going to understand how much he meant to all of us. He was just too humble to expect that he had this type of impact. But make sure that you have the chance to say something, and if I forget something, please jump in and correct me. We're all family here. So Jan asked me to play a song on an instrument that I don't play, and I'm not a musician anymore. And so I'll do my best in a moment. And I want to start by thanking Mark Dudrow for playing in the beginning. So I'm going to start by reading a letter that Mark Kanishi wrote to Kay's daughters. And then Mark and I'll play the other side. Actually, Jan asked me to say a couple of things about being Kay's student. I'll try to do that. And then Mark Seaton will give the obituary. And then after that, we had Rhonda Schonecker scheduled to play, but she's been under the weather. She has hurt her back, and we all wish her well. And last night, we recruited Robert to come play a song for us, a beautiful song that has a line in it that I'm sure Kay would have loved. So Robert will play after that. And then Marty Jones will have some concluding tributes and remarks. And then I thought we would pass the microphone around in the Quaker tradition, and although Kay was not Quaker, but and have everybody have a chance to give a memory or say something that they would like to say. And then finally, Cheryl Farley is going to play the harp and one of Kay's favorite song, if not his favorite, the favorite song, Bridge Over Troubled Waters. And, you know, we all felt like that about Kay, didn't we? Okay, so Mark, I'm sorry if I botched your letter here. And this is a letter to Kay's daughters. And it goes, your father was a man of great influence, and he was totally oblivious to the depth and breadth of his positive impact. He was absolutely and totally respected in his chemistry teaching, and I never heard a disparaging word about him from any student. He would lead us into class, preceded by really heartfelt conversations with students while we waited outside the auditorium in the old science building for everybody to leave. There was a crowd as the next class came in. He was just being his congenial self. He treated every student the same, regardless of their ability. His influence was lifelong for many of his students. I've personally heard former students, upon their own retirement, say that they hoped that Dr. Watkins was proud of them. I know that feeling. As for myself, and this is Mark speaking, my consistent and constant message to all of my employees was to make a positive difference in the lives of others every day. A few great individuals influenced my management style, most notably your father. He was a great builder of humans who taught chemistry too. And thank you for writing that. Where are you, Mark? Yeah, beautifully said. So I do have a couple of things to say. They're just personal things. And maybe I'll get I dropped my pick here somewhere. I heard it hit. And me looking for a pick is like, I have no chance to find this pick.
Is that it? Right. Close to the water bottle. No, close to your source. You keep it.
I don't see very well, in case you guys don't know that. Well, maybe I'll wait on that for just a second. So I first became interested in chemistry when I needed a work-study job. I was going to be a musician. And I was, as I always am, I was the opposite of Kay. Kay told me many times that the way to get things done is to do the worst thing first. And I never agreed with that. And so I've always procrastinated and done the worst thing last, and so I'm never prepared for anything. And I forgot to get a work-study job, and I needed that money to go to college. And so I ran into Jan and Kay in front of the student union and explained this to Kay, and he said, well, I'll give you a work-study job, but you have to take general chemistry, and you have to declare yourself as a chemistry major. And it took. And my year, there were 4 of us. And my students, and it's good that you're putting this out there to the world so if they ever see this, they'll know this. I was by far the weakest student in that class. That class had Sam Hendricks in it, and Sam was a true genius, and he aced everything. And then David Van Pelt was pretty good, and Sandy Schreier were very good in that class. David went on to be a doctor in Denver, and he's here today. Hopefully he'll say something. And Sandy did her PhD at the University of Wisconsin, where my daughter Isabella's going to go next year. And then there was me, and I was just behind. You know, I was interested in music and didn't know anything about math or science or chemistry. And so I had a lot of catching up to do. And I remember vividly one night, Kay had given us this assignment, and I was about a sophomore or junior, and I had no idea how to do this. And I picked this scientific paper to read, and I didn't understand the first thing about it. And so he had me over to his house and made me dinner, and we stayed up into the evening going over every line. He didn't know all the things that were going on either, but we had a great time. Eventually, I went to graduate school at the University of Utah, and I followed in Kay's footsteps there too. He had been there on sabbatical with Ted Eyring, and I worked with Ted Eyring for a summer. I didn't do my PhD with Ted, but he was a big influence on many people. I don't know how well you know him. I think everybody knows these stories, but I always have wondered how it is that Kay got from where he was to where he wound up. And, you know, some people's talent is just so unmistakable. You can't miss it. And he did a triple major in math, physics, and chemistry as an undergrad. And then he applied to graduate schools at the University of Chicago and Yale and Vanderbilt and other places. He got into everywhere he applied. And at that time, you know, Fermi had just done the first sustained nuclear reaction underneath the football field for the Manhattan Project. So this is maybe 20 years after that. And so there were Nobel Prizes, and the impact of Chicago was just about to be felt for the next generation. And Yale, of course, had similar sort of story, not quite Chicago's. But Kay turned those down to go to Vanderbilt because he'd wanted to go to Korea. And so he went to Korea first, and he felt as if he had lost a little bit of, this would be a good point for him to catch up and go to Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt was a great place too. So he did his PhD in physical inorganic chemistry, and I learned that from Neil Rudolph, who I think is here too. It was a hot area. He did stop flow reactions. He brought a stop flow kinetics system to Alamosa and ran some experiments here as well. He worked at Brookhaven on very toxic chemical reactions and was exposed to radiation one time. Maybe Jan will tell that story, where he had to scrub himself off and they had to read him, measure his radioactivity for some time after that. I was always struck by how much Kay gave, and there's a great quote by, I'm going to forget it now, so I won't even try. He had this kind of extreme confidence coupled with amazing generosity, and he was brilliant. And so he just gave and gave and gave. And those of us that he gave to, and I'm sure everybody here feels the same way, we're just impacted in major ways. We hung on we wanted to be like him. And Jan told me that near the end of his life, Jan, I didn't ask permission to say this, I hope this is okay. He said to her that, I wish I had done more for others. It's hard to imagine anyone doing more for others. Anyway, there'll be other people speaking. That's all I've got to say about that. And now we'll play a song. Oh, I have one more story to tell. Can you steady that for me? 1 second. My last story is about this song. I started coming back. Actually, I started it. Kay invited me back in 2010. And when I came back, Don Richmond and I decided to start recording. Don asked me if I'd like to record some songs. And so I came out and I would stay with Jan and Kay because I didn't have anywhere to stay, and they offered that to me. And then eventually, one of the famous opera singers from Bloomington, she just won an international contest. Amanda Biggs got interested, and so I said, well, come out and play these songs with Don Richmond. And she needed a place to stay. So we stayed with Kay and Jan together. It was over Christmas time one time, and I remember us staying up into the night, drinking red wine and singing Christmas songs. And then somehow Don Conoscenti, who wrote this song that I'm about to play, The Other Side, wound up staying with Jan and Kay as well. And I remember them sitting at the kitchen counter in this deep conversation. And in my eyes, two more different people there would never be. But Kay had gone online and read all about Don Conoscenti and had all these questions for him, and Don Con just loved that. And Don Con was somewhat inspired too. I think you probably know this song. And I don't play this instrument, so give me just a second to fool around with it so that I'm somewhat in tune. I'm over on the other side, where life and death softly divide. left my skin and bones behind. Now I'm over on the other side. Can you feel me here with you? My breath is gone, but I'm not through. I loved you then and I still do. From over on the other side, I can fly, really fly. Below the earth, all through the sky. Tell them all I did not die. I'm just over on the other side. It's good here on the other side. The sweetest songs, the bluest skies. Thank you for the tears you cried. But it's good here on the other side. I can fly, really fly. Below the earth, all through the sky. Tell them all I did not die. I'm just over on the other side. I always want to add the word hook to the end of this. The world is smaller than a needle's eye. When life and death softly divide, when you leave your skin and bones behind, I'll be waiting on the other side. I can fly, really fly, below the earth, all through the sky. Tell them all I did not die. I'm just over on the other side. The other side. The other side. The other side. Mark.
Thank you, David and Mark. That was great. Before I start, I just want to say one thing. Kay's been my good friend and fishing buddy for many years, and now in the middle of dry fly season, I'm really missing him. So I'll do my best to get through this thing. K. Orville Watkins, 92, longtime chemistry professor and dean of science at Adams State, died June 11th at home under hospice care. His wife and 3 daughters were by his side. Kay was born April 28, 1932 in Nunn, Colorado, the first child of Paul Watkins and Freda Orndorff Watkins. His only sibling, a sister Wanda, was born 2 years later. This time was the height of the Great Depression, and the family had to move frequently to find employment. As a result, Kay attended numerous grade schools, 3 different ones in 1 year. Despite this, Kay always loved school and learning. The family moved to Alamosa when Kay was in junior high. They settled here for many years. Kay graduated from Alamosa High School in 1950, ranked 3rd in his class, and he was senior class president. He attended Adams State on a joint honors scholarship and as the first generation in his family to attend college. He had graduated in 1955 with a triple major in chemistry, physics, and mathematics. A member of the college tennis team, he also had a full-time job at the local Ford garage. Although he applied and was accepted to several graduate schools at the time, he postponed entrance and volunteered for the U.S. Army, serving toward the end of the Korean conflict. Even Army facilities lacked indoor plumbing, and water for showers came directly from a polluted river, so it's no wonder that Kay and many other soldiers contracted amebic dysentery and a fungal skin condition, both of which lasted several years after his honorable discharge. Upon returning to the United States, Kay chose to attend graduate school at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, where he earned a PhD in physical and inorganic chemistry in 1961. That same year, he married Janice Rogers in Manchester, Tennessee. Their honeymoon was driving to Washington, D.C., where Kay had been hired to work in the Naval Research Lab for the summer. Chemists were in high demand in industry at the time, and Kay had not planned a teaching career. However, then Adams State President Fred Plotke, who knew Kay well from his undergraduate days, convinced Kay to come home to Adams State to replace his former mentor, Dr. Tom Thompson, who was leaving for health reasons. Thinking he could come home for 2 years, then take an industrial job, he remained for over 30 years and became a much-loved professor by hundreds. Besides teaching, Kay also did research during summers and sabbaticals. He worked at the Naval Research Lab in Washington, D.C., Brandeis University, Boston, Brookhaven National Lab, Long Island, New York, Argonne National Lab, Chicago, the University of Utah, Salt Lake City, and the University of Hawaii, Honolulu. Kay trained students who worked not only locally, but around the U.S. and the world. His students are teachers, researchers, workers in every field of medicine, and in work ranging from the U.S. Forest Service to the FBI. Many have kept in contact by phone or visit until his death. Professional honors Kay received include ASC Outstanding Alumnus, 1993, Excellence in Science Teaching Award, Colorado Association of Science Teachers, 1993, Colorado Alliance for Science Lifetime in Science, Mathematics, and Technology, 1990, and SOV Regional Science Fair for Outstanding Dedicated Service, 1961 to 1992. Besides his passion for family and teaching, Kay was an avid and extremely competent fly fisherman. Living in Wyoming at age 10, he learned this skill. He honed his fishing ability until illness stopped him at age 90. Kay helped us reestablish the local Trout Unlimited chapter many years ago and was an active member until his death. He did everything from trash pickup to creating trout habitat in several local rivers. Colorado Trout Unlimited honored him as an outstanding volunteer in 2016. There are never-ending fish tales about Kay. Perhaps some will be shared later in the service. Kay was predeceased by both his parents and his only sister, Wanda Watkins Dix, and her husband, Darrell Dix. Sister-in-law, Maxine Rogers Flowers, also predeceased Kay. Kay is survived by his wife, Janice, and their 3 daughters, Susan and Bradley Schuler, Melissa Watkins Rega, and Lauren and Scott Ammerman. Each daughter had first a girl and then a boy. Grandchildren are Elise Schuler, Daniel and Nikki Schuler, Sarah Rega, Thomas Rega, Catlin Ammerman, and Mason Ammerman. Great-grandchildren are Lucas Schuler and Spencer Schuler. Kay's devotion to truth and ethical behavior and his ability to share and give others are his legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. The program has changed a little bit. I think this is when Robert is going to come play a song for us. I called him up last night when Rhonda couldn't come, and he thought about his songs and called me back. At first he was saying he didn't think he had anything, and then I must have talked him into it. I did twist his arm pretty hard. I hope that's okay.
Well, thanks for David for asking me to do this. I appreciate it very much. When I learned of Rhonda's illness last night, I called David and informed him about her not being able to play today. She had asked me if I could sing the song that Jan had wanted her to sing. And I listened to it. It's a beautiful song, but it's way past my range, and I never heard it before yesterday, and I didn't want to butcher it. So I looked at my song list, which has been posed to playing in bar rooms far too much. But I found one that I had learned recently. So recently I still have to have the words in front of me, but it's a song that Willie Nelson made famous, written by a fellow named William Callery. And it just popped out of all my songs as this one might fit. And that picture right there of Kay holding that big fish sort of prompted me to say, David, I think I could sing this song. And there's a line in the second verse David wanted me to share with you beforehand. It's, in the shade of an oak down by the river sit an old man and a boy, setting sail, spinning tails, and fishing for whales with a lady they both enjoy. And that sort of prompted me to say, David, let me sing this one instead. It's rather timely and timeless at the same time. At a time when the world seems to be spinning hopelessly out of control. There's deceivers and believers and old in-betweeners that seem to have no place to go. It's the same old song. It's right and it's wrong. And living is just something that I do. But with no place to hide, I looked in your eyes and I found myself in you. It's the same as I listen, I look to the stars and all of the bars in my life is nearly gone up in smoke. Now my hand's on the wheel of something that's real, and I feel like I'm going home. In the shade of an oak down by the river stood an old man and a boy, setting sails, spinning tails, and fishing for whales with a lady they both enjoy. It's the same damn tune, it's the man in the moon, it's the way that I feel about you. And with no place to hide, I looked in your eyes and I found myself in you. I looked to the stars, tried all of the bars, and my life's nearly gone up in smoke. Now my hand's on the wheel of something that's real, and I feel like I'm going home. And I feel like I'm going home. Thank you.
Sound guy. Check 1, 2. Next up is Marty Jones, who's going to read some tributes to K, 4K, and hopefully tell us what it was like to be K's colleague when he was the dean of science over at the college.
First of all, thanks to everyone for being here. I see lots of familiar faces, and it's good to see everyone here on this day of celebration. The first thing I have is from Gary Peer, who was the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Adams State when I first came in 1989. And this is what Gary says. Over my 47 years in higher education in 6 states and 7 universities, K. Watkins is arguably, if not the best, then one of the best deans I have worked with. He is unarguably one of the best teachers and one of the kindest and most decent men it has been a privilege to have as a colleague. And some of his students included his primary care physician for many years, his hospice physician for his final days, and the pharmacist who filled his final prescription. The next one is from Cole Foster. Cole and Sue are traveling. They could not be here today, but Cole kindly wrote up some comments, and this is going to be a fishing story from Cole. Bear with me. Cole's an English professor, a poet, and someone who can read very well, read his poetry. I will try to do it justice, but remember, I'm a chemist. As Sue and I were leaving a gathering one evening, Kay said that he and Dale Barron, who is here in the audience, were going fishing the next week on the San Juan. Would I like to go along? Kay and I had hunted ducks over the years on the Rio Grande. One particularly feckless day near Los Alces, we emptied our shotguns and did not touch a feather. Kay declared with a glint in his eye, "There's a lot of room behind a duck." His sense of humor alone was enough to entice me to go along. But to Kay's invitation to try fly fishing, I answered honestly, "Kay, I don't think I know enough about fly fishing to go, but thanks for asking." We continued on, but my wiser-than-I wife said, "You'd better go or they will quit inviting you." So I yelled back over my shoulder, "Yes, I would love to go." At that time, I had only fished with a Zebco. Anybody here remember Zebco? Yeah. It's a closed-face spinning rod with a worm dangling from my line. The Zebco rod cost $7 on sale at Kmart, and my worms were free for picking out of the gutter next to the house after an Iowa thunderstorm. Many years before, I had found in my rental house in Albuquerque a fly rod case containing 2 fly rods. They were expensive rods. One cost $19 and the other cost $21, which is more money than I had spent collectively in my life on fishing gear. Also, during my youth, I found a fly reel in the neighbor's garbage with hopes of returning to my father's birthplace, Colorado, to fish for rainbow trout. A friend gave me a pair of hip boots that had been willed to him by an uncle in Missouri and a pair of Converse tennis shoes for wading, so I was completely equipped, except for having virtually no knowledge or skill. The big day came, and we were in the vehicle on the way to the San Juan River in the choice trout water below Navajo Dam. I noted some slightly covered giggles when I mentioned the price of my fly rod. Years later, Kay noted that my initial rods were about as limber as crowbars. We arrived at the river and prepared the rods for fishing. Since I knew nothing about the process, Kay showed me step by step. He took out a box of things that for a slight flash were indistinguishable to my untrained eye. And I said, "This is a joke you play on everybody when you bring them over here for the first time." All the flies were very tiny, and they all looked alike, much smaller than an Iowa worm. Kay tied on a flashback pheasant tail and a copper john. While I did not know one fly from another, I hoped the fish could tell the difference. I put on my inherited hip boots and tennis shoes and picked up my rod, and we started for the river. Halfway there, Dale remarked that my right wader had a rip at about knee height. I said, "I guess I'll have to limit my fishing to very low water then." Kay reassured me, "There's some fairly low water available, and you will have a chance to catch some fish." At the shore of the San Juan River, very near a beaver lodge, with my knees knocking, I really felt like I could hear the beavers chattering laughter at me. Yes, I was just a little bit self-conscious because both Kay and Dale were experienced, skilled fly fishermen. I literally felt like a fish out of water, or maybe in water. But I had come to fish. I stumbled out into the water, which was about 2 feet deep and already seeping into my truncated waders. The San Juan is a great fishery today, but back then, 25 years ago, it was even greater. I was astonished to see a pod of at least 100 sizable rainbows in front of me, glittering in the shallow water. There were so many that they almost touched each other. I thought maybe I had a chance. I looked around me and saw that both Kay and Dale were upstream fishing unconcernedly in the upper flats. I commenced to flail away. It was sight fishing only because there were fish everywhere, not because I was aiming at a specific one. After about 100 casts, I felt a strong tug on my line, and lo and behold, I had one of them on. I jerked the line this way and that, trying to control the throbbing fish, and Kay yelled, "Do you want me to help land him?" Full of false bravado, I shouted back, "No, I will lose him myself." But after a few long minutes of being pretty sure that I would lose him, a gorgeous 18-inch rainbow trout was flopping on shore, and I released him. Both Kay and Dale deservedly looked up in surprise, and Kay yelled, "Good job!" It was a wonderful feeling I had never had before, and it sparked a passion that I had not felt before. I continued to haphazardly toss my nymphs into the fray, and believe it or not, after a few hundred more casts, I hooked and landed the second stupidest trout in the river. I continued to fish with Kay for many years and appreciated him tutoring me. He was a fabulous fisherman, and I am just a guy with a rod in my hand and love in my heart for the spiritual pastime of fly fishing. I will always be grateful to Kay for introducing me to fly fishing and for his selfless tutelage. Okay, and now from me. So, Kay had an incredible mental acuity and memory. You know, he knew the names of students in his classes, whether it was a 15-person class or a 100-person class. In just a few days, he was able to call on students by name, not just in the setting of the classroom, but on campus, wherever he encountered them. He was able to quickly calculate percentage scores on exams without a calculator. Now, I witnessed this. He was adding up the scores. He already knew what the total was. It was not 100 points on the test. You know, it may have been 87 or 93 or whatever it was. He would add up the points that the student had earned, and just by writing X over Y, he then wrote the percentage. You know, it took me longer to do that using a calculator than it took Kay to determine it in his head. Kay always prepared notes when he was going to be speaking at an event like this, or at an award ceremony, or for a professional presentation. He prepared notes, but when the time came for him to give his talk or his presentation, he put the notes away. He always memorized things. And I'm sorry, Kay, but I would love to be able to tribute you by doing the same thing myself, but I cannot. You know, I just don't have his mental skills. His teaching success can be measured in many ways. You already heard Mark in the obituary mention some of the awards that he received. In addition to the Colorado Association of Science Teachers Excellence in Science Teaching Level, and his awards from the, well, Mark, you'll have to tell me. See, I already forgot. But one thing that was not in the obituary that I think you all need to know is that Kay was admitted to the Adams State University Educators Hall of Fame in 2015 for college teaching. He could have also been admitted to the Hall of Fame for administrative roles, but he chose to be in teaching. He inspired and impacted students in all his classes, two of whom here today, David and Christy Miller, are respected and honored professors in their own right. While I was still teaching, it was commonplace at homecoming to have former students stop by the School of Science and Math or the building and ask for Dr. Watkins, not Kay, but a measure of their respect was they always referred to him as Dr. Watkins. And on several occasions, I know after he had retired and was no longer in the building on a regular basis, those same students would end up going over to his house on El Rio Drive to see him because it was so important that they get a chance to visit with him for a while. Kay's administrative skills were without peer. After meeting with him for only a short time during my interview, I could tell that I would enjoy working at Adams State as long as he was my dean. He gave professors, many of whom who are here in this room today, he gave professors a lot of academic freedom to use whatever pedagogy they felt was most effective, but he would give advice if he were asked for it. He was never guided by a personal agenda, always by what was best for students and the School of Science, Math, and Technology, including ensuring that faculty had the necessary resources and support to be successful. He was not hired to be an administrator initially, but rather to be a teacher and conduct undergraduate research, which he did very successfully. When he was asked, though, he did assume administrative responsibilities. He grew to be an outstanding division chair and then dean. He led by example. I'll give you just one illustration. When I arrived at Adams State in 1989, it was a part of the state colleges in Colorado's system. That included Metro State, Mesa State, and Western State, in addition to Adams State. Every year, that system convened a faculty-to-faculty conference to share practices, to share best practices, and to talk about how things were going, and to give research talks. Kay thought that those conferences were valuable. But instead of requiring faculty to participate, he would do something like this. He would say, I'm going to the faculty-to-faculty conference at this location this year. Would you like to come also? And by the way, do you have something that you could present and share some of the things that are going on at Adams State? Unfortunately for me personally, Kay retired 2 or 3 years after I came to Adams State, so I didn't get to have him as a dean for very long. Other people who are in this room knew him as dean for much longer, and perhaps they will say something later as well. Those 2 years, though, were great years for me personally at Adams State because of Kay. And Kay had a concern not just for collegiate students, but K-12 students in the San Luis Valley as well. I can look out and see some alumni from Project Link, which is a program, a summer program for elementary and middle school teachers that Kay started in the early 1990s. It was a project designed to give those elementary and junior high teachers the skills necessary to incorporate active learning in the classroom, essentially doing little experiments at the desk rather than to have a separate laboratory time, just to incorporate it as a part of the regular class. Very successful and used extensively throughout the valley. And that was before active learning really became kind of a buzzword for collegiate and K through 12 teaching. Another example I can give is Kay was the person who brought Science Olympiad to the San Luis Valley. There was an active Science Olympiad group over along the Front Range, and they were going to have a meeting to try to expand Science Olympiad to the rest of the state. There were going to be a meeting in Pueblo. So Kay loaded Randy Emmons, Ed Adams, and me into his car one day after work. He drove us over to Pueblo. We met with those folks, And when we came back, we were all enthused about Science Olympiad. And so that was really how that started. One last thing about his concern for K-12 students, well, actually K-6 students maybe, was he wrote a book and established a course called Chemistry for Elementary Teachers. And I know that Mark was in his class one year. That book is still available. I know many faculty or many elementary teachers who have used it a lot. And it's a way to get students excited about science before they get to high school and collegiate level. I have just a couple of personal stories as well, if you'll give me the forbearance to continue on. Kay was a graceful skier. You know, that's not really mentioned all that much, but back in the days when Jim Woodkey had snow days at Wolf Creek Ski Area, Adams State would go up there. Diana and I were interested in skiing. I wouldn't say we were particularly accomplished skiers, but we'd get up on the slope and watch Kay come down the slope, and it was just amazing how graceful he was on skis. He gave it up after a couple of years in the early 90s because he had to save his knees for fishing. That was much more important. As you're aware from all the music that we have here and his presence at Society Hall frequently, Kay and Jan both love music. He and Jan always had excellent music on at their house whenever there was a gathering. In fact, the first time I ever heard of the singer Norah Jones was at Kay's house. He kept up with new musicians, not just the ones that he had grown up with. Kay enjoyed spicy food. I will tell only one fishing story, and that was on a trip to Wyoming when I was on sabbatical. I will tell you that it was in the general vicinity of Fontenelle Reservoir. I can't say any more than that, or I would be in trouble. You know, fishermen can't give up secret spots or anything of that sort. Larry Bussey and I drove up to meet Jan and Kay and Harry Daly, and as a part of my contribution to food, I had made a batch of green chili stew. Well, the night came for us to have the green chili stew, and Kay and Jan and I were the only ones who could handle it because it was too hot for Harry and for Larry. On that same trip, Kay taught me how to fish using dry flies that were too small for me to be able to see very well. He said, tie on this size 18 elk hair caddis or 16 elk hair caddis, and then behind it, tie on a 12, I take that back. Tie on a size 12 elk hair caddis, and then behind that, tie on like a 16 elk hair caddis. And if you see any swirling close to the fly that you can see, set the hook. And sure enough, that trick worked, and it's still something that works to this day. So I have to thank him for that skill. He taught me many other things, but that would take too long. So one final thought, and then I'll turn the mic back to David. In Don Richmond's song Cathedral, which is on his album Mirage, Don states, "My cathedral is the canyon. For Kay, the cathedral was the river. Mostly the Rio Grande, but Kay was not all that parochial. Whatever river he was on was his cathedral for the day."
Gosh, I worried about this event for the last 2 weeks, and wow, I shouldn't worry so much. Now we're going to open the floor here's what's going to happen next. We're going to have you all share your memories from your seat, and I would like to have my fastest daughter, Isabella, get up really fast and hop out to the aisle and run back to Robert and get the wireless mic. And we're going to have you... Oh.
David, there's a comment on the Facebook live stream that I'd like to read if I could.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so there's a comment from the Facebook live stream from John Peterson that I would like to read, and you're going to have to, yeah, okay. With Kay's knowledge, inquisitiveness, humor, and passion, he not only lit but ignited a passion for scholarship, science, and teaching, inspiring my continued quest for knowledge and application, a quest that we shared to reach heights I never thought possible. He continued to support and promote me after graduation and nominated me to be the 2018 Alumnus of the Year. His hospitality when I traveled from Leuven, Belgium for the award was greatly appreciated, including the memorable trips to Hooper. Kay's unwavering dedication to education and relentless pursuit of knowledge left an indelible mark on everyone he encountered. As a mentor, he guided with wisdom and patience, always encouraging us to question, explore, and innovate. Kay's legacy is not just in the scientific contributions he made, but in the countless lives he touched and the students he empowered to follow their dreams. He will be deeply missed, but his influence will continue to resonate through all who had the privilege to learn from him. Kay is my friend. Kay, thank you.
Very nice. So we'll have Isabella bringing the mic around, and if you have a comment, just raise your hand. Before we do that, though, let me finish explaining what will happen next. After this, you better get in fast, because we can't do this all day. But we'll do this for a while, and then what we'll do, I suppose we could do it all day, it's up to you. We'll have Cheryl sing Bridge Over Troubled Waters, and that will conclude this part of the service. And then Jan has required that each of us meet at the upstairs of Cavillos to have lunch together. And so please come to Cavillos afterwards. Okay, who's going to go first? Scott. Quick, Bella.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Scott Emmerman. I'm married to Laura, the youngest. I will probably be the first to lose it. So, I have a unique. First of all, thank you also for all of you attending. I have a perspective that's a collage of everyone present in the room. I've been firsthand witness to the accounts of strangers who have shared the affability that they found in Kay, unparalleled by others. I'm also a teacher. I taught chemistry for 23 years, and the impact that Kay has had on former students is inspiring to me. To the casters and the blasters, he tried to get me to fly fish. Mostly over at Dale's place, but it just didn't catch. So I'm a blaster, and I had the privilege of sitting in a blind that he created when he was in high school outside of Las Sausas. And while there was nothing flying, just having hours-long conversations or hours-long silence that was perfectly comfortable. A lot of us hear stories as we're growing up about what it's like to have in-laws, and I've been blessed by Jan and Kay. I first met Kay 34 years ago, almost exactly to the day. I was working in Midtown Manhattan and sea level, and I flew out here, and first thing Kay did was take me out and get me drunk. He knew this 23-year-old kid couldn't handle the elevation, and he had fun with that. But I was blessed to have him in my life as a father-in-law. He was non-judgmental. He accepted me for who I am and supported the entire family. And I will forever be grateful for that. I don't have a speech written out. I think I've hit everything that I wanted to, but again, I thank you for all coming out and showing your respects. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dave Van Peltz, and what a privilege to be here today. This is really wonderful. I was a student at Adams State from '83 to '86, and I just remember Kay being sort of this larger-than-life mentor. That I mean, I had this idea I wanted to be pre-med, which seemed kind of crazy, and when I was looking around at colleges, Kay was, you know, super supportive of crazy ideas, and he would find, he just reassured me that he could find scholarships, he could honor some AP credits, and that I could take analytic chemistry as a freshman. Neil, that's kind of interesting idea. But I think the fact that he had faith in me and that he encouraged me just gave me, you know, a lot more confidence to proceed. And sometimes, like, mentors show up, but you don't quite, you know, yeah, you may not recognize it, but like, kind of navigating postgraduate and postgraduate, you know, things, because sometimes careers can be tricky. You kind of, you can encounter bad mentors, and you're like, oh yeah, Kay, he was like an amazing mentor, and just yeah, just a larger-than-life figure. And so that's why I'm a proud supporter of the Kay Watkins Scholarship for Chemistry Majors.
Okay, Isabella. Oh. Are you going to speak, Grace?
I'm Grace, and I'm David Clemmer's daughter, so I've gotten to know Kay my whole life and be his friend my whole life. And when I first visited here, Kay took Bella and I out to the gator farm, and I was the only one that would hold the alligator. And he took us to Hooper Pool, and I always liked to do a craft, and so he taught me how to make the fly fish, which is right up my alley.
Okay, there's a person over here, Isabella. And let's hold our applause. I told Jan we would keep this to 40 minutes to 50 minutes, and
I'll be
we're
quick.
over an hour. So,
My name's Carla Lucero, and I don't know if I can hold myself together, but the Watkins home was my home on El Rio. I had a great home, mom and dad, but I think I was 50% of the time at the Watkins house. And it was because of the love of Kay, and we all have to just say and clap or something for Jan, because her life will be completely different after this, and I have never seen a couple that was so devoted to each other through their lives. But their daughters, Susan, Melissa, and Laura, were my little sisters. And they used to leave to go to, like, Tennessee to visit the family, and I was so jealous. They were going to Opryland and stuff, and I was house sitting at 64 El Rio, their lovely home. Anyway, I just want to say that my biggest regret was that when Susan sat down to do her math homework, Kay helped her, and I had to go home. And I never was quite as good because of that, I believe. But never two more loving people have I been mentored by. Kay, who was strong but quiet, and Jan, who was strong and not as quiet. The love that they had for each other, again, I just have to repeat that. There was never a moment I saw them on a different side of an issue. because if they were, they worked it out in private. And they had fun. They danced, they listened to music. We all had wonderful events in the backyards. And I'm so thankful that my son today, Nicholas, who couldn't be here, because he works in a summer camp and there are a lot of kids there right now, got to fish with Kay, because it's a legacy that goes on through time, and I will never forget you, Jan, or Kay. Thanks.
Okay, there was a person in the back over here, Isabella.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Douglas Camp. What a room full of beautiful, blessed people to be with. I'm here to speak with you representing the San Luis Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited. I serve as the president, and I get to rummage through the archives and the records. And we would be remiss if we did not express our gratitude for the work that Kay extended to our chapter over the years. He was very persistent in many events that we worked towards, as well as many habitat improvements, and just a wonderful man. And we're going to miss him a lot. Two things about Kay that I have learned from you and from looking at all the projects that he worked towards. Kay was very persistent. He knew how to just stay after something and get it done. And that's a quality that we can all take with us today. The second thing is about fishing. A lot of things have been mentioned about his memory and that he wasn't parochial. Let me tell you something about Kay Watkins. He knew our valley inside and out. I once posted a picture on Facebook of a place I was fly fishing. It happened to be Lahara Creek. It was just it was a beautiful picture, but it was just, there was no way to know where it was at. And about 3 hours later, Kay replies to the picture, "Well, that looks like you're fishing at Lahara Creek." So I'm pretty sure he'd fished everywhere. But again, as the chapter and all the members, and especially representing the board, we owe him a very big debt, and we appreciated him and loved him so very much. Thank you.
I'm Jim Whiting. I'm an Alamosa kid. My dad would get our hamburger from Paul Watkins' home public market. And I didn't really meet Kay until, I graduated from Alamosa High School thinking I was going to be a professional football player, and it didn't work out. So I thought, well, gee whiz, maybe I'll become a student. And I was fortunate enough to have Kay Watkins be my general chemistry teacher in 1965. I took general chemistry. I thought I'd be a chemistry major. Next year I took physics, and I had another class in physics, and by golly, I better finish in physics or I'd be here 10 years. I got out of college, went to the Navy, came back, and started skiing. So I got to see Kay Watkins not only as someone who introduced me to science and study and science, as a wonderful teacher and someone I admired very much, to, as was mentioned before, an incredible skier who always came up with the attitude of adventure and smiling. And later on, I was fortunate enough to have a place near Las Houses where Carol Worm and Cole Foster and Kay would come out, and we would try to scare ducks and geese. So not only was he someone who influenced my life very much, but I was fortunate enough to become a friend of his and Jan's, and we all know him that way. What a wonderful man. He's in my heart, and I'm sure he's in everyone else's heart. Thank you, Kay, for all you've done.
Isabella, bring the mic up this way next time. Okay. Yep.
Hi, I'm Anita Armold, and we've been friends with Kay and Jan since we moved here in 1985. And we shared many, many dinners together. But it seemed like every time Kay and Jan came over to eat with us, or we were at their house, there was a story of Kay adventures falling in rivers, or in creeks, or out of boats. And I would always say to him, Kay, you are really putting your guardian angel to work. She is totally worn out. Well, today I want to say, Kay, your guardian angel is at rest as you are at rest. Thank you.
You're getting tired of fishing stories, but the man was incredible, to say the least. And he didn't really get to go out and do things when he wanted to, when he needed to. His responsibilities as a dean, as an educator, as a parent. So every now and then, didn't happen often, but we'd get to go fishing on a weekend, maybe late in the winter or something. We ended up down on the San Juan, went across the river, found a place where the stream's nice and deep. The stream is nice and deep in that area, and he set himself up above me, and I went below, and we fished for a while, and all of a sudden I glanced up, and there's a hat floating down to me. Well, of course, I retrieved the hat, ran up and see what was going on, and I get up there, and on the shore there's a wet and bedraggled dean sitting there trying to recover from his experience. I want to add one more to that, because, you know, is that the story? The dean fell on his tush? No. Kay Watkins, we're talking about a very gentle man here, but he attacked life. He was basically very, very focused. I know exactly what happened on that trip. He was fishing, all right, and he got the looking out there, and about 5, 10, 15 feet beyond his casting range was a rainbow like that one. What did he do? Yeah, he went for it. He's a remarkable man, great administrator, but what he was more than anything for me, he was the finest leader I ever knew.
Isabella, let's move the microphone up here and have some comments from, one more comment and then we'll move it up here.
I'm Dale. 34 years ago, my father died. And I had been teaching with Jan, and the head of the department didn't like this long-haired hippie guy playing the guitar out in the hall. And so she took me under her arm, and she, to this day, calls me her little brother. And she took me home to meet this wonderful man. And he became much more than a little brother to me. I look at the picture up there, and it seems like we have a reservoir right across the street from our house. And he would take the girls up fishing up high, and if they didn't have very good luck, they came to my place. And that looks exactly like we had Tasmanian rainbow trouts that were just like that. And it was wonderful. He'd bring the whole family and Kentucky Fried Chicken to our house, and we would fish and just had a great time. He was a wonderful man, and I will miss him. He was my fishing mentor.
Brad?
I'm Daniel Schuler. I'm one of Kay's grandchildren. Living in Florida, I didn't get to spend, nearly as much time as I would have liked. Looking through the people in my life, and I'm sure everyone here from the different stories can agree, there's not another person who I have zero negative memories of. every moment was filled with positivity, with learning, and with passion. I'm so grateful that my children had a chance to meet him, and I just wish I had more time.
Fun one to follow up, but I'm actually Dan's father, Brad Schuler. 44 years ago, I fell in love with Susan Schuler, Kay's oldest daughter. And you know, from the first time I came to Alamosa, I experienced something I didn't know in life. I was from the East Coast. People always were, you know, tense and high stress. And these were these nice, calm, happy people. They welcomed me to their home as an 18-year-old, and it never changed through all the trials and tribulations of life. And I don't know if you guys know this about Kay. A lot of you knew him longer than I did, but I never heard the man raise his voice. I mean, that's a staggering thing. We all get angry. I mean, we all get upset, and I'm sure he did, but he had this calm, even approach to life. So I just wanted to share that, and one little story that to me is, for me, was the essence of Kay, who was, Kay and Jan are the best role models any couple could ever have. But years ago, Kay and Jan took Susan and I on a cruise to the Caribbean, and we went to Belize, and we took a little boat up the river to a Mayan temple that you can't even get to by land. It was really exciting, a remote location. And I looked at that Mayan temple and I thought, all right, I'm going. I'm gonna be the first to the top. And I took off going as fast as I can to be the first to the top of that temple. I get to the top and I'm dripping sweat and panting. And I look up and who comes right after me, calm as can be? Kay Watkins is the next one up with a smile on his face. But that was the Kay that I knew and loved and will remember forever, and I know you all feel the same way.
Okay, so I'm gonna follow suit with family. So I'm Kay's granddaughter-in-law. I'm married to Dan, and we, fortunately enough, have the two boys that are his great-grandchildren, Lucas and Spencer, and I haven't had nearly as much time as everyone else in this room clearly did with him. But my most fond memory is going to Colorado a few summers back, and we brought the boys. And if you have boys, you know boys are rambunctious, and mine, they're rambunctious. And I remember going to their house, and we gave the boys a speech in the car. You know, you need to be good, you need to say please and thank you, and they got the whole spiel. And we get in there, and boys will be boys, and of course they start to fight. And they're back and forth at each other, and I look over at Grandpa Kay, and he's not ready to scold the boys or yell at the boys. He just has this big smile on his face, like it was the funniest thing he's ever seen. And I didn't know what to do. Do I tell my children to stop, or do I put a smile on my face? I don't know. And one thing led to another, and I obviously didn't grow up like you guys did, but next thing you know, we're out on the patio in their amazing backyard, and Grandpa Kay is teaching my boys how to make what I thought was called ice cream, but in your family it's called white. So that's a picture we have, and it's something that I know I'll always remember.
Okay. I don't see a hand up right now, so I'm going to take this opportunity. We're going to miss lunch if we... Jan is changing the reservations. We're going to be late right now. Let's... I do want to do one thing, if it's not too rude. While Cheryl gets started, I'm going to take a picture of all of you for Jan. And so we'll... And I think, can people sing along, or would you rather... Can people sing along?
I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friends are hard to find, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down when you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down like a bridge over troubled water. I will lay me down. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind, like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind. I will ease your mind.
Okay. Everyone, thank you for making this such a beautiful moment. And if there are still things that need to be said and done, don't miss the chance to say and do them at Cavillos over some nice Mexican food. Okay, we'll see you all over there. Thank you.